Those are endometriosis, uterine fibroids, and polycystic ovary syndrome. These conditions historically have been misunderstood and overlooked by clinicians. And so as I started to witness and hear from women that suffer from chronic pain and also infertility through these conditions, I thought that it was a major gap and under-researched in the African-American community, which also extends into Medicaid patients over 62. Good afternoon, Yusuf Henriques, founder and CEO of IndyGeneUS AI. So I stumbled on a problem, not because I'm a woman, but as a father of 4 daughters, 3 sisters, started to notice quickly these 3 conditions that affect about 90% of the women population. And those are endometriosis, uterine fibroids, and polycystic ovary syndrome. These conditions historically have been misunderstood and overlooked by clinicians. And so as I started to witness and hear from women that suffer from chronic pain and also infertility through these conditions, I thought that it was a major gap and under-researched in the African-American community, which also extends into Medicaid patients over 62. And so as a biochemist, I took a different approach where, we're looking at this as a molecular driver to look at genes that are directly associated with these conditions. And so over the last couple of months, we've built out a platform that we're now working in a pilot study with large pharma companies to look at endometriosis, fibroids, and endometriosis within women population, especially in the African-American community and older women that suffer from 1, 2, or 3 of these conditions. And so we're really driving a platform working with advocacy groups around these women that suffer from these conditions so that we could understand the genetic drivers and the genetic signatures that may be underlying to some of these conditions so we can look at early detection, early prevention. And you may have seen this before. The blueprint is really the BCRA1 and 2 for breast cancer, which was done over 30 years ago, which was highlighted by 1 in 40 Ashkenazi Jewish women were identified with these genes. The Jewish Foundation funded a lot of the early stage study. These 2 genes was identified and has gone on to save millions of women's lives and generated quite a substantial amount of money through testing and screening. And so when we looked at the market size, you can see all 3 of these. Predominantly 50% of these are through the high cost of surgical procedures that's included with treating some of these conditions. And we think there may be a better way than just, surgical procedures and being able to identify these at an earlier stage using next-gen sequencing technology, which is the emerging technology and innovation that's being utilized right now to look at pathogen genomics and pathogen of viral infectious diseases, as well as now being looked at human genetic markers for predisposition into certain conditions. Competitive advantage, we're really looking at this from a molecular level. What's out there primarily are being done at, the base level of just looking at, the symptoms. We're actually sequencing the genome ourselves so that we can find those unique markers. Then we could drive drug discovery and look at druggable targets that could benefit the patient population, including Medicare women. Why us? Past performance. I've done this before. My previous company, I built a blood test for PTSD for the military using Holocaust survivors and World Trade Center survivors with Mount Sinai. Deep experience with gene expression assay on the Illumina next-gen sequencing platform. I'm a former USA regulatory subject matter expert on both device and drugs. Our pilot study will be 500 African-American patients that have 1 or 3 of these conditions with Merck in early June. And our partnership with the 3 advocacy women's group have about 55,000 women that will be able to engage, market to, and get to be participants in the trial. Our team, myself, Dr. Wilson, and Gordon, are all part of my previous company in different executive role. Eric is a cybersecurity expert and built a cybersecurity application, which is what we're building our platform. And Angel Livas rounds out our communication team. We have a stellar advocacy and advisory group of women in the medical space. Adeze worked for the Obama administration. Dr. Walla is on the African continent, where we're looking at women with these conditions. And Dr. Cameron Matthews, who previously worked as the Chief Medical Officer for the VA and now is at City of Hope, and Dr. Bala and Zanwa Mandela, who's part of the Mandela Legacy Foundation in South Africa. Looking to do $2 million to raise. We're really trying to drive our platform so that we could aggregate these large data sets of women with these conditions so we could find genetic drivers and have successful use case has the BRCA 1 and 2 has done for women. And so some of these are our seed investors that have already joined us on our mission, looking for you guys to join us as well. Thank you.
Yusuf, great presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you for the important work you're doing on your mission. You've really focused on 3 target areas: PCOS, fibroids, and endometriosis. Why focus there? And if that market is as large as it looks like it is, why haven't other companies focused on it?
That was our shocker. Again, as you said, you don't know how big the problem is until you have someone that's either going through it or going through it to yourself. And so when I started looking at endometriosis, which is probably the most prevalent out of the 3 that you hear a lot. And then I started meeting women that said they had 2, and then women that said they had 3, and the multiple surgeries that they've had. So as a researcher, I started looking into this, like, why is there very, very understudied, like most women's studies over the last 40, 50 years. And so when I started to look at the correlation, I couldn't just do one or the other, because now I started to meet women that were actually in chronic pain, dealing with 2 or 3 of these conditions. And so, it's surprising to me as well, as you asked. That's the same question I asked myself, hence why this is the area that we're focused on. And being that I'm a girl dad, I have daughters that are going to be reproductive age. That's going to be important as well to make sure that we find some solution other than just surgery, which is currently the method of treatment right now.
And from your standpoint, what is really the next step for you to move from pre-revenue to revenue generating company?
Yeah, good question. I mean, really is because there's no library to reference right now, I have to do the heavy lift. And the heavy lift is what you saw the raises for, is to get the machines, which are high throughput machines that sequence about 20,000 patients a year. So I could quickly scale to about 40,000 patients with 2 machines. That's 40,000 women in underrepresented population with genetic profile along with their clinical data. That'll be a treasure trove for me to then go to pharmaceutical companies like Merck and others that are interested in that type of platform to start looking at those genetic drivers and start looking at drug discovery in druggable areas, and then early detection, early prevention, creating screening tools that can help these women identify that they have these conditions a lot earlier. That's really where we are right now, because we're building it from the ground up.